This video is sponsored by Surfshark. More on them later. Hey, that little Kirby man has done some good stuff, hasn't he? It's actually a little ridiculous how consistent Kirby has been over the years, and it makes a video like this, where I'm gonna try to rank every single Kirby game from worst to best, a bit of a challenge. Like, everything is at least a 6 or 7 out of 10, so we're gonna be splitting a lot of hairs here in pursuit of understanding just that little bit more about our favorite pink ball of marshmallow. Also, no Japanese only games because I have to draw the line somewhere. Which is part of the reason why I'm more concerned with internet security than ever before these days, since there's a ton of internet pirates out there looking to plunder your personal information, but that's where today's sponsor Surfshark come in with all their VPN know-how. VPNs like Surfshark let you connect to servers across the globe, with Surfshark in particular having over 3,200 servers spread across more than 95 countries, so you can access international streaming libraries and watch, say, Japanese Netflix and fill up on the all-you-can-eat anime buffet. Don't tell me you don't want to go to the anime buffet. Plus, it's worth mentioning that there's some more serious applications, since online security is more important than ever these days, and Surfshark can help secure your data with industry-leading measures by using uncrackable encryption and the best VPN protocols around, so you can join public Wi-Fi, safe in the knowledge that your personal data is being kept nice and safe. Surfshark is super easy to install and can run on unlimited devices from a single subscription, so you can safely do all your interneting on a massive number of different platforms, and with a 30-day money-back guarantee and 24/7 live customer support, that's like a load of good stuff. You can go to surfshark.deals/RabbidLuigi and enter the promo code RabbidLuigi for 83% off and 3 extra months for free. That link is also in this video's description if you don't fancy typing all of that out. Secure your connection with Surfshark. Anyway, time for some Kirby! So straight off the bat, there basically isn't such a thing as a bad Kirby game. It's an incredibly consistent franchise that's never had a standout terrible game, and so picking the worst is actually pretty damn hard. In which case, my first act of this video is to be controversial, because my worst Kirby game is actually Kirby Air Ride, which is so far the only Kirby racing game ever made. It came out at a time when the GameCube had Mario Kart and F-Zero on it, so you can see what they were trying to do, but Air Ride had a simpler control scheme, which is fine, I guess? Hardly anything offensive, and it's actually going for a different demographic, but then you find out that this was the game that made Masahiro Sakurai leave HAL Labs, tired of all the sequels. I can't place a game that made Sakurai sad anywhere other than in last place. Tell me that you'd do different. Of course, every Kirby game means that we're reaching to depths as obscure as the GBA's e-reader, which usually never extends as far as standalone games, but I'm counting Kirby's Slide as one, because apparently I like having more work to do. At the same time, Kirby's Slide is incredibly basic and is pretty much just a slide puzzle of Kirby's adorable face, and once that's over with, that's kind of it. Super basic, and perhaps a sign of what a waste of time the e-readers were. Also, I fucking hate slide puzzles because I can't do them, so yeah, fuck all of this. Fast forward to the final days of the 3DS, and Nintendo quietly dropped Kirby Battle Royale, which is perhaps one of the most underwhelming Kirby games ever made. Again, not bad, because that's physically impossible, but Battle Royale sadly isn't able to deliver on the promise of a 100-player lobby full of multiplayer Kirbys beating the shit out of each other. You can fight other Kirbys, but it's basically a collection of mini-games coupled with a lackluster story mode. If you can find someone else playing this thing online, go buy a unicorn. I know I said at the start that I would be ignoring the standalone expansion games, but did you know one of them got a sequel? Yeah, Super Kirby-Clash picks up what Team KIRBY-CLASH Deluxe was throwing down and brings its flavor of action RPG free-to-play Kirbyness to the Switch's eShop. Free-to-play is the headline here, since it's a Kirby game with premium currency, and I kind of think that that's maybe the worst thing I've ever heard. I don't want to think about real-world currency when I'm supposed to be enjoying my lovable Kirby game. I think I'd rather just buy it outright. Which is what you will have done at some point with Kirby Block Ball, because this game is just Breakout with Kirby characters. The good thing is that Breakout is really fun and only becomes more fun when Kirby's involved. Obviously it's a basic concept and Block Ball hasn't got too many surprises around the corner, but for a spin-off Kirby game released in the mid-1990s to fill out the Game Boy's library, surprisingly solid. You know, until recently, Kirby Fighters 2 was the only Kirby game that I hadn't played, and that's because it came out with so little marketing from Nintendo that it completely passed me by. And that's a real shame, because this is what Air Ride was to Mario Kart, the same that Kirby Fighter 2 is to Smash Bros. Heavily watered down and with a basic control scheme of course, but it's a really good attempt at bringing this kind of game to a more casual audience. It's got a lot of rough edges that could have used some extra dev time, but as another sequel to another one of those standalone expansions, you could do a lot worse. I remember making some bold claims in my Zelda video, and we're back doing the same today since I don't think the original Kirby's Dream Land is all that great. I can't be too harsh on it because for 1992 and with Sakurai aiming for a simpler platform that anyone could play, Dreamland does everything that it set out to do. Yes, it's easy, but you can unlock a hard mode and change how much health Kirby has in order to tailor it to your skill set. My issue is that copy abilities aren't here yet, and you notice their absence as soon as you play through it after playing any other Kirby game. For such a staple ability to not be here just feels weird, man! Kirby in his merciful years, clearly. Much like in Block Ball, Kirby's Star Stacker is another simplistic puzzle game for the Game Boy, just released a couple of years after the Breakout clone. Star Stacker is more reminiscent of Dr. Mario, but with animal heads instead of medicine, and that's basically all there is to say about it. I like Dr. Mario from time to time, and so, yeah, Star Stacker is a fun way to spend 10 or 15 minutes when you're feeling bored. But if you want more than a mere puzzle game to keep you busy and you fancy having your world turned upside down, then you need to get your hands on Kirby Tilt and Tumble. Another game from the thought process of Kirby is a ball, what can we do with that, saw several accelerometers stitched onto a Game Boy Color cart so that you can physically rotate your console and help curb through the levels. Wonderful bit of innovation, but being on the Game Boy Color, it didn't have a backlight, and so it was very hard to see what you were doing on an upside down handheld from 1998. Luckily, it's never been re-released on any virtual console, not even the 3DS with its built-in gyroscope. You remember the 3DS eShop, yeah? Well, Nintendo is trying not to. I feel like it should be some kind of achievement for Nintendo to make a game for a franchise on the Wii U and for it to not be absolutely terrible. Likely something we'll revisit if I ever talk about Mario or Animal Crossing games, but for now we're safe because Kirby and the Rainbow Curse was a pretty good video game. It followed on from the gameplay style of Canvas Curse, where you draw a path for Kirby to follow, which I feel in this game more than Canvas Curse kind of turns every level into a linear rush to the finish. You can't steal abilities, which is a bummer, but it is a reasonably enjoyable, beautifully presented alternate take on a Kirby game. As opposed to Kirby Avalanche, which is practically a reskin of Puyo Puyo, but I feel like I speak for most people out there when I say that Puyo Puyo slaps and that Kirby Avalanche is so much fun to play. Puyo Puyo already has a lot of charm, but when combined with Kirby characters, it's like this insane eruption of adorableness that you can't help but be swept up by. No idea why it's called Kirby Avalanche when Kirby Puyo Puyo was right there. Puyo! Only now do I feel like I can offer up a properly formed opinion of Kirby's Star Allies. It's been out for a while, but Nintendo did this thing that they seem to be doing with lots of new games lately, where new games are a little light on features that are kept aside to be released in the coming months after launch. Star Allies was a victim of this, and while it was definitely a well-made, albeit safe and risk-adverse adventure, all the interesting game modes that you could play to make it more difficult came after. Still though, it's got plenty of creepy stuff in there, so can't say it's not a true Kirby game. Although, if you want some proper scares, then Canvas Curse should be your beveragino of choice. It's nothing too crazy, but that final level and boss fight have absolutely no business being in a Kirby game. What the fuck? Canvas Curse feels strangely linked to Tilt and Tumble with how you're moving Kirby through a level through unconventional means, and I would say that using the touchscreen to create a path is done more creatively here than in Rainbow Curse. For what was a relatively new concept for Kirby, this has tons of value to it and is well worth your time. Kirby Pinball? Yeah, Kirby as a ball that you flick around a pinball table, and actually, it follows the very Nintendo tradition of creating some really fun pinball spin-off games of franchises that have nothing to do with pinball. Arguably more challenging than your average Kirby game because pinball can be a bitch sometimes, but you still got guest appearances and end-of-stage boss fights. I don't know who gave King Dedede lightning powers, but I am here for it. I might be putting Kirby's Dream Course higher than some other people, but I honestly couldn't give a flying fuck, because there is something incredibly addictive about launching Kirby's spherical body at high speeds across increasingly complicated courses. It's Kirby Golf, which makes about as much sense as Kirby Pinball, but I love how complex Dream Course is. What starts simple soon becomes filled with hazards with only a handful of creatively used copy abilities and your skills at flinging Kirby across the screen to help you. It's stupid and goofy, and I love it. Here's a fun nugget of trivia for this video. I completely forgot about Kirby Squeak Squad until roughly about this spot in the video during editing. Not too sure why, because I had a blast with this one, an opinion that I haven't seen replicated too often on the internet, but I don't really get it, since Squeak Squad brings in a new villain in DeRoach who commands an army of mice, and in general it's a return to form for traditional Kirby games. A little derivative in places, but being able to store abilities is so useful. My boy's got depth! If I think that the start of the Dreamland trilogy is a little disappointing, then I'm sure you're wondering what I think about the end of the trilogy. And I think Dreamland 3 is a groovy good time for all. The year is 97 and the NES is on the way out, and you can feel the two-dimensional fatigue setting in, but by this time, HAL was so confident with what Kirby was like as a brand that Dreamland 3 oozes quality. And also oozes bloodied eyeballs, but, you know, video games are wacky. Wacky is the word of the day, especially when you're dealing with the concept of a Kirby Metroidvania, or a Kirtroidvania, I guess. Kirby and the Amazing Mirror is a wonderful idea for a video game, where the successive flow of one level after another that Kirby usually goes with is traded out for do whatever you want. It's the open world experience we've all wanted, and by 2004, HAL had become pretty good at making 2D Kirby games. It's just a lot of Kirby to play, and that is a-okay with me. After its somewhat restricted first game, Dreamland 2 is such a great big gulp of fresh air. Copy abilities are here now, which actually helps to cover up how much has also been recycled from the original Dreamland, but one little change is enough to completely change how Kirby games are played. Fresh off the back of Kirby's Adventure, Dreamland 2 is a slightly watered down version of what was quickly become the Kirby standard that could be played anywhere at any time, and that's how you build an awesome franchise. I love how self-aware Kirby Mass Attack is. Creepy title aside, I love the idea of using the DS's touchscreen to overwhelm enemies with a bunch of all-consuming Kirbys, and it plays into the idea that Kirby's skill set is at least a little bit terrifying for the opponents. It's less nuanced than some of the other touchscreen Kirby games out there, but being able to control the Kirby hive mind as it destroys everything in the game, I like this power. If you're still feeling a bit sour about where Kirby's Dreamland ended up, you may be interested to hear that Kirby's Adventure is my special baby child. Only the year after Dreamland, and yet in that short space of time, Sakurai and his team worked out that the Kirby formula needed a little extra something to make the games a little more challenging and more replayable, and so, yeah, this is where the copy abilities came in and changed the trajectory of this franchise forever. 25 different abilities to use and screw around with, and it makes Kirby's Adventure such an awesome time. It's like, fully in its stride now. I want to say that I've always loved Kirby 64, but I bounce around a lot with this game. You've caught me on a good day though, and this is a seriously impressive transition to 3D. Not fully 3D of course, since that wouldn't come for a couple of decades, but graphically, it's a satisfying blend of simplicity and charm. Level design is lacking in a few areas, and it really needed that big, confident sequel that never arrived, but for what we have, I have very few complaints. Kirby's Epic Yarn may be one of the easiest games ever made, but hopefully all of the Kirby I've talked about so far has convinced you that an easy Kirby game is hardly a bad thing. Instead, what you're likely here for is the gorgeous presentation, or the wonderful level design, or the sheer amount of fun you can have when playing with someone else. Definitely something deeply experimental, but so full of magic and wonder that I can't help but love it. Kirby found his home on the 3DS in a way that previous Nintendo consoles could only dream of. The two main games did incredibly well and helped to spawn a bunch of standalone expansions that I'm not talking about today because there's tons of them, but Kirby Triple Deluxe was a huge shot in the arm for this franchise. Kirby on new hardware with amazing level design and really fun copy abilities to fool around with, and a soundtrack so good it blows my mind, it's got so much to keep you busy. HAL haven't tried too hard to force a multiplayer Kirby adventure into the public zeitgeist, but by around the mid to late 2000s, when HAL were cancelling a multiplayer Kirby game for the Wii, you could tell that they were looking for some kind of perfect storm where multiplayer would be able to elevate existingly great level design, and by the time Kirby's Return to Dreamland came around, they'd nailed it. Chaotic with everyone doing their own thing, but not too frustrating, and a game that always has half an eye on the next great spectacle, it was absolutely worth the wait. And so we arrive at the latest Kirby game, Kirby and the Forgotten Land. This was a huge moment for this franchise, diving headfirst into full 3D levels in a way that doesn't take away from the joy previously found in exploring 2D levels in older games. The new mouthful mode is a nightmare but fun to use despite it being so situational. I have very few issues with the Forgotten Land, but I'd love to see a follow-up, the sequel that Kirby 64 never got, that makes a bunch of small improvements and makes something even better. Post-apocalyptic Kirby game is, yeah, it sure is something. Don't think about it. Kirby Superstar Ultra is plain and simple one of the best remakes I've ever seen. The original Superstar was no slouch by any means and is somewhat akin to being the link to the past of the Kirby franchise, but the ways in which Ultra goes beyond the original with sharper graphics, a new game engine, and a whole raft of new features and modes to make Superstar more replayable and at times much harder, is just a wonderful thing that someone's made. Just the amount of time you can spend in the new game modes is enough value on its own, but damn, it doesn't half take you to some wonderful, strange new places. Occasionally horrifying places. So I did make my video that ranked just my top 5 Kirby games a few years ago. That was where this came from. And you may have noticed that my opinion generally hasn't changed since then. Kirby Planet Robobot was number 1 then, and it's still number 1 now, because I'm telling you that I have never played a Kirby game so well refined and polished. It's the confident sequel to Triple Deluxe that was so needed with much more copy abilities, and a goddamn mech suit that never feels out of place and is never underused. And it's a game made with knowledge of what the 3DS can offer Kirby, as well as decades of experience and understanding of what Kirby is as a franchise. Such a weird game to be the best Kirby game because there's this weird sci-fi aspect to everything, but it is simply the best Kirby you can find these days. He will not let you down, I promise you. Anyway, that was a large list of what I'm pretty sure was, in the end, every single Kirby game. Do you agree with me? Do you think that I am right to feel this way, or would you like to disagree? Let me know in a comment down below. Tell me your favorite Kirby game is what I'm trying to say here. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe for more, and hit that bell for notifications. I also want to thank my top supporters on Patreon, including AJ887, Devon Hutt, and Raina Baina Bobana. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.